Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Crafted for speed, tested and worn by Bukayo Saka. The New Balance Furon V8 refines the ultra-lightweight, precision, strike-focused design for an even greater sense of speed. A new speed control stud is designed to support control during sudden stops, sharp pivots, and moves used by the fastest players on the pitch, like Saka himself. Experience engineered minimalism crafted to support explosive movement and the sharpest of touches. Learn more and purchase a Furon at newbalance.com/soccer.
Hey, warmer from the above. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you guys. We're going to be joined in a few minutes by Ryan McIntyre. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, all about the mid-majors today, baby. He does such a great job looking at all 364 Division I teams over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and their show, specifically the college experience. I also know that he's out there in the great state of West Virginia taking a look at all things Mountaineers with the Ryan and Rush show, but we're going to be taking a look at the Coastal Conference, what they've all got stocked up this season, the Atlantic 10, their intrigue. We're going to touch a little bit upon the American. I'm going to mention a team from the NEC that I'm very intrigued by as well, the Missouri Valley Conference. We're just going to run the gamut. And we did see one piece of news in college basketball on Wednesday, the fact that we're going to be seeing the Big Sky in the 2026-27 season, moving on over to the Big Sky. That is going to take a year to be able to commence. They're still out there in the Big Sky this season. They're going on over to the Big West next year, but that is going to be a move that is going to be happening, so we've got that to talk about, so certainly have to touch upon Sacramento State, and if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you, for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Lars EM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to access their funds anywhere and at any time. For EdgeBoost, they're making sure that all these gambling transactions, they are approved. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg. That is GREG. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's dive in with our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who you're able to follow on Twitter/X at Moneyline_Mac, spelled MAC on Mac. And Ryan, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, always appreciate you having me. Dog days of summer are upon us.
Yep, they certainly are, but the mid-major teams are starting to make a little bit of noise right now, and what'd you make out of the news that we did see over the last 40 or so hours? The fact that Sacramento State, it's not for this year, but it's for next year. But they're going to be joining the Big West, and in terms of what we're seeing this year, it truly is a team that's made quite a few moves.
It really is, Greg, and look at it, Mike Bibby, Shaquille O'Neal, some excitement in that program. I know it's going to be a big NIL package, so I don't think you'll see the benefits of that right away. I think when you turn it over the course of a couple classes, I think you'll start seeing the benefits. But joining a good league in the Big West, I think the future's bright for Sac State.
Yep, and I do think that overall Big Sky is really interesting as well, because for Sacramento State, while I don't think that they're going to be able to win the Big Sky this season, I do think that their prospects of having a relatively solid year aren't too bad. It seems like it's a very winnable league, and it does feel like a lot of those teams that were so dominant in the Big Sky over the last few years just have not really had good off seasons.
It's kind of opened up over the last couple of years. I mean, Eastern Washington had a really good run there with David Riley. Weber State has kind of taken a little bit of a step back just as a program overall. The Montanas, of course, are always consistent, but yeah, they were older last year. Usually it was a league that had and relied on so many really, really good vets and veteran core groups, but with the portal, a lot of these guys have just gotten plucked away, and a lot of unknowns because they go to the junior college ranks or the D2 ranks to transfer up.
You have no question about it, and very intriguing that Idaho is actually returning a ton. And if you look on Bart Torvik's website, they're the team that's projected to win the Big Sky. So I do feel like I'm living in a little bit of a bizarro world, and this is a conference that I think it's a little bit more, I guess you could say, tangible in terms of what we're seeing out of them, because this conference has seen a lot of turnover over the last few years. But I look at the Coastal Conference, and I just think that these teams in general are in for a big year. I love what UNC Wilmington has done. Campbell, even though they're going to be with a new coach in Mr. Andrewchuk, I feel like they've done a good job. Charleston, Towson, I go down the list, and when I'm taking a look at the low/mid majors for this upcoming season, I think that the CAA really has a chance to surprise.
Oh, you don't have to sell me on the CAA. I'm a CAA truther. It's local to me. Wilmington, I mean, Takeo Siddle coming off the NCAA tournament, and he was involved with the VCU job to a certain degree, but elects to come back to Wilmington, and they really upped their NIL package. They're having a really good portal offseason. Towson's won more games in the state of Maryland over the last 4 years than any other program, and that includes the Terps and many others. So Pat Scary's always running a really good program. I expect them to be good even though they lose a lot. And, of course, Charleston with their resources, that beautiful campus, Chris Mack, year number 2. You can never count out them in CAA.
Yeah, no question about it. I just think that entire conference is really intriguing, and I mean, it is very fascinating as well what we're going to be able to get out of UNC Wilmington, who you mentioned before, because with UNC Wilmington, they have brought in a lot of guys that were in the conference previously. Like, they're going to be bringing in a lot of the top guys because, for example, they get Campbell's top scorer from a season ago. They are going to be bringing in Madison Dewar as well. Like, I just look at the way that they've mixed and matched CJ Luster coming in as well, and I mean, it is very interesting. And by the way, you actually have Kobe Duggan going on over to Charleston, so lots of within the conference transfers happening here.
I think that speaks to the NIL. Is Wilmington and Charleston by far have the two best packages and lucrative packages to offer compared to the other schools. The other schools kind of got to form an identity like Towson with toughness. Northeastern's been a good continuity group. But when you look at Wilmington and Charleston with the resources, the money, they're on a different level. And when they're able to scout out guys that they know are going to be able to and have already proven that they can play in the league at a high level, it just makes all the sense in the world to just bring them on to their program and insert them in their system. So Wilmington, Charleston, they're not going away anytime soon, even if they change coaches, because we've seen it. Both those programs have basically turned into coach-proof winning programs now.
Yep, they certainly have. It's Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and I do think that it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get out of the CAA this season. And another one that I just take a look at, which is so intriguing, and obviously they're a little bit more on the upper end, is the Missouri Valley Conference, because in this day and age of so many transfers, of having so much that is going on, it is so much fun because you get to see these guys in the same system for multiple years, and I think that is really big in this day and age.
When you watch the Valley, you feel like you're back in the glory days of college basketball before all this madness happened. A lot of continuity within these programs, whether it's Drake, now with Coach Henderson coming over from South Dakota State, Ben Jacobson's run just a really good program in Northern Iowa for years and years. Then another one is Bradley. Bradley just with Coach Wardle has always just been a constant winner. And I think that's why these coaches are more selective when they're jumping. They're waiting for the right high major gig because they know these Valley jobs are basketball first in the Midwest. And there's a lot to be said for that with the era of football taking such a big step in the money packages.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that as well, because it does feel like these conferences that have been able to really rise up, that have been able to form a good identity, it has been based around these conferences that they don't have football. Or if they do have football, they're just very, very low level amounts of football. And I think that that's so big in this day and age as well, just being able to allocate all of your funds to college basketball.
Yeah, for sure, Greg. And we see it time and time again. The schools that don't have football, the Gonzagas of the world, the VCUs of the world, St. Mary's, they really separated themselves at the mid-major level. I don't even consider them the mid-majors anymore. I mean, Gonzaga's been a high major, in my opinion, for the past 20 years. But they just are able to insert themselves, Grand Canyons of the world that we see more and more, try and duplicate and replicate the system that Gonzaga and St. Mary's have been able to really been good at for 2+ decades now, and throw VCU in there with all the different coaches that they've had. I'm expecting big things from Coach Martelli next year as well.
Oh, I am as well. I just think that the entire Atlantic 10 is going to be incredible this season. I take a look at what we're going to be able to get out of that conference, and I am just so impressed by what they're able to provide. And I do think in general, when you do take a look at what we're going to be able to get in the Atlantic 10, and I do want to touch a little bit more on this conference on the flip side with Ryan, because I know that he knows a lot about the Atlantic 10. Additionally, we're going to dive in a little bit more on the American as well. Those are more of your, shall we say, higher mid-major conferences. We're going to be talking about that and so much more with Ryan on the flip side right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beeson Family Podcast.
An upper corner shot's just deflected by the goalie. It's a corner kick. Wow! Incredible!
Beautiful shot!
No, that fan earned 2% cash rewards buying Pulisic merch.
They're using the Active Cash Visa credit card from Wells Fargo, which scores unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases.
Scoring 2% more. Wonder what that's like.
Oh, it's like... Go!
Score off the field with the Active Cash Visa credit card from Wells Fargo. Terms apply. Visit wellsfargo.com/activecash. Visa, worldwide partner of FIFA World Cup 26.
Impressive.
And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. I know that he's hard at work just trying to be able to take a look at what we're all going to be getting for this upcoming college basketball season. We've been talking so much about these mid-major schools, and we are going to continue to do so with the Atlantic 10 here on this side of things. You're able to follow me on Twitter /X at Moneyline_Max, spelled M-A-C. And how about if we do dive in a little bit more on that Atlantic 10? It is one of those conferences that is starting to rise up once again. I don't know if they're ever going to get back to the place where they were getting like 4+ bids of the NCAA tournament, because as we know, that Atlantic 10 conference tournament is always just so brutal. But I do think that there's a lot of teams that are going to be really competitive, really feisty, and these teams have done a really good job, like at George Mason in the transfer portal too.
Yeah, and you got teams that are traditionally good, like Bonaventure, even Richmond. Richmond will bring back a lot. They were young last year. Mooney's won for a long time. Schmidt's won for a long time with the Bonnies. I like Tony Skinn, what he's been able to build so far at Mason. Caputo at George Washington's doing a good job as well. St. Joe's is taking some steps. Duquesne as well. It's just a really, really good basketball league top to bottom. And I haven't even mentioned schools like St. Louis with Schertz, year number 2. Just overall, just a really, really good basketball league.
Yep, I think so as well. And when I take a look at the Atlantic 10, I do think that this team is worth mentioning as well. George Mason, who has been able to form a rough and tumble identity under Tony Skinn, they've done a good job of being able to add some guys in the transfer portal. And I do think that moving forward, we're going to be seeing a lot out of George Mason as well.
It's amazing, like when you do hire a former player and it hits. It really does feel right. Tony Skinn was the best point guard in program history, led that Jimmy Larinaga team in 2006 to the Final Four, and he just gets it. He went to school there. He bleeds green and yellow, green and gold, whatever other official terminology is. He's a Patriot. He knows what it takes to win in that program, and his teams play like he did. Get after you defensively, make the extra pass. You know, Kim English, before Tony Skinn got the job, was getting really good players. I just didn't think that they had the identity. Now, Tony Skinn's been able to not only get the players, but implement his system and his identity for multiple years now in Fairfax.
Yep, I agree with you, and I think that he has been able to do such an amazing job, and I always do think that it is very interesting to take a look at some of these teams that have been able to boom or bust with regards to what they provide with bringing on former players as coaches as well, because we know that it didn't work with St. John's, we know that it didn't work with Michigan, but it just always feels like it works better out there with these mid-majors, even going back to the Coastal Conference with having Speedy Claxton over at Hofstra.
Yeah, Speedy Claxton's been a good one as well. I look at other guys like Valentine at Loyola. He's a former player. I know he didn't play at Loyola, but he played regionally in that region. He's been a really, really good fit. So it does feel like the mid-major guys, they embrace and embody just that identity of the little guy, like Tony Skinn, to our point.
Yep, absolutely. As Ryan McIntyre does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, he is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I do think that with taking a look at just these mid-major teams in general, it is a little bit of a different landscape. And is there a few that you've been taking a look at this offseason that you're thinking these teams could be able to boom and they could be able to provide quite a bit of bang for your buck?
I think the main one, like I said, I like what Martelli's been able to do at VCU. I like what Henderson's been able to do at Drake. I know that they lost a lot. They lost all their guys to Iowa, but he's been able to bring some of those guys from South Dakota State, and we know they're going to have an identity like his Jackrabbits teams. I like Wilmington, Siddle, coming back for another year, another crack at that NCAA tournament and the CAA. And also Chris Macca with Charleston. I think that they struggled a little bit because they got banged up in February, but I do think that they're going to make a run here in year number 2. Max teams usually do make a nice jump from year 2 to from year 1 to year 2.
Yep, I do think so as well. And I do love the fact that you bring up Charleston with the way that they were able to do such an amazing job in terms of being able to launch it from three-point range. They completely changed the identity there. And then let me bring up this team as well, because as we know out there in the Northeast Conference, man, not necessarily a lot of talent out there, but I really love what Long Island has been able to do, and I want to get your thoughts here on a team that brings back quite a bit. I really feel like Gerald Gillian being the associate head coach, which typically we talk about the head coach, but in this case, I'm talking about the associate coach, that has really been able to change the fortunes of this program.
Yeah, Rod Strickland, he's done a good job of getting a lot of talent down there. But I also like Central Connecticut in that league, Greg. I know they came up short. They only scored 45 in the conference championship last year. I think that they're set to make another run at it. But Long Island has made some strides. They're getting a different level of athlete, it feels like, year in and year out there.
Yep, no question about it. And the fact that they're bringing in Greg Gordon as well, that I think is so intriguing. And allow me to dive in on this conference as well, because a lot of people, they look at the Power Four and then everyone else, but this is always like conference number 5, number 6, the American. And I do think that with the American Conference, there's going to be a lot of buzz around them this season, because you do have UAB, who was able to have some nice inroads last season. Now, obviously, Lexel Lendeborg being out of the fold, that is a little bit rough, but still, I do take a look at what we're going to be able to get in terms of them. I think it's good. And Florida Atlantic, it felt like they found their footing towards back half of the season last year, and they're another team that I think could be able to really make some noise against Memphis this season.
Yeah, Jake, I'm with you. I thought that they started to play better and better down the stretch. I like Wichita as well with Paul Mills, year number 3. I think that they're able to make a big jump here this year. I like UAB, of course, with Andy Kennedy. He always overachieves, especially in March. You can pencil them in for 20 wins, and they'll probably get to the championship. North Texas is going to be interesting. Post Ross Hodge, a different era with Danielle Robinson coming down there. But I also like Temple with Coach Fisher, and see if they can build on some continuity there.
Yep, no question about it. And I do think that with that entire conference, we've got some intrigue. And like, I was feeling really good about Temple last season, but I'm not sure where you're at. But I think that this conference would do a lot of good if they're able to find things as well, because I do think that Adam Fisher is a good coach. I do believe a little bit in what he's building, but still, it feels like for Temple, things have just not been able to get going regardless of who the coach has been really over the last decade or so. And they just feel like they're sort of stuck in the mud.
It is old Coach Dumphy. I thought that they pulled the trigger a little too early on that one, and they've kind of struggled to find their identity. Aaron McKee, I know, was a former player. They just struggle with consistency. Fisher finished strong for his first year, but then, of course, in the last year, they were banged up a little bit. So I'm interested year 3. I say I'm interested in year number 3, like it's the olden days where it's like, okay, we're really going to see the identity of this program, but it feels like everything is just year 1 or year 2, year after year with this new era. So AD's fan bases are a lot less patient than they used to be.
Yep, no question about it. And I do think that with regards to the American, we've got a lot of teams that are going to be so interesting too. And with Tulane, that's the team that I think is really going to be a little bit of an X factor for this conference as well, because I feel like they've had a really nice offseason, bringing back Rome Brumba, bringing back Greg Glenn, and then bringing in some like a Scotty Middleton. They've got JoJo Moore in the fold. They're a team that I think could really be a little bit of a difference maker, and they're a team that I think under the radar has had a really nice offseason.
And there was rumors Ron Hunter might be on the move, so yeah, bringing in some big names. Ron Hunter's done that a couple times. They've been another program that I think has struggled with consistency. At times, it felt like they had enough talent to beat anybody in the American, but then they would drop puzzling road games, and they started slow, and then they were able to rally, come on strong. But yes, another team that struggled with some consistency, but roster-wise this year, size, athleticism, I do like Tulane in the AAC.
Yeah, Tulane is another big one, and I know that you are doing such an amazing job with your coaches series. And have you guys been able to bring on any of the coaches quite yet, or is that going to be coming up in the next few weeks?
Greg will be starting in August, actually. We're going to do more of a fall tour this year, just so we have more to talk about with their current teams and practices rather than their journey. So I want to be able to talk to these coaches more and more about their teams and for the upcoming year. So we'll get those going, rocking and rolling August, September, and October, leading into November. It'll be a nice 90-day series.
Oh, that is absolutely tremendous. And how much have you had to change that over the last few years? Just because with everything that we're seeing in college basketball right now and the changing landscape, it does make it a little bit harder to be able to get things done in advance because there are still guys in June that are signing on with teams.
Exactly. And that was another thing. I was like, I didn't want to try and be bugging guys while they're trying to finalize their roster. So I figured it'd be a better time to try and when we actually know when the rosters are finalized and we can pick these coaches' brains on their upcoming team, what kind of style they think they're going to play. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it. We should have 50-plus coaches on once again this year on our coaches tour.
That is going to be incredible. And let the good people at home know where they're able to find in this coaches series, just what you're all up to and what's all on tap for you.
Absolutely, Greg. Yeah, in the meantime, we're previewing all 135 or 136 college football teams. And then we'll be breaking down for the month of July some report cards on some off-season so far and just breaking down the lay of the land in college basketball. Follow us over all college sports all year long over at the College Experience. And Greg, always appreciate you having me, brother.
Oh, absolutely. As our good friend Ryan McIntyre is doing such an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. And every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So a big thanks to Ryan for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And if you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, the name does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I'll be coming at you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season. Big thanks once again to our good friend Ryan McIntyre for joining me in these last 2 segments. And I'll be back with you once you get them out. Thank you.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, and convenient installation options. Go to TireRack.com to see tire test results, tire ratings, and consumer reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
An upper corner shot's just deflected by the goalie. It's a corner kick. Wow! Incredible!
Beautiful shot!
No, that fan earned 2% cash rewards buying Pulisic merch.
They're using the Active Cash Visa credit card from Wells Fargo, which scores unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases.
Scoring 2% more. Wonder what that's like.
Oh, it's like... Go!
Score off the field with the Active Cash Visa credit card from Wells Fargo. Terms apply. Visit wellsfargo.com/activecash. Visa, worldwide partner of FIFA World Cup 26.
Impressive.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous, but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.